Hey now, welcome. Grab yourself a block or something that acts as a block for a prop. I'm doing a rolled up towel because I'm away from home base, so I didn't bring all my props with me, and it works just as well. And your strap, and if you don't have a strap, you can use the strap that holds onto your mat, or you can grab a man's tie. That works as well. Hey now, welcome. As a strap. And I'm going to adjust the visual just to get a little closer because we're not going to be moving much from the mat in terms of standing up and stuff. So it's yin Sundays. And so we'll have a visual that suits being on our mat in a more vertical position for most of the practice. No playlist as well today, but I welcome you. If you feel free to do so, you can check out any of my yin playlists on my Spotify. And otherwise, there's a lot to be gained from being with yourself and being with a kind of silence for our yin. Give it another minute and we'll start up. All right, guys, welcome to Yoga with Simone. It's Yin Sundays. This practice is all about taking time and really reflecting in shapes in a still manner. Ooh, that mat is hot. All right. First order of business is the OG of all poses, Shavasana corpse pose. And before the practice of yoga, as we've come to kind of know it, especially if you're a vinyasa type of person, if you like to flow and keep it moving and busy, I get it. But before that, there was this. A quiet meditation, the space of the body, the ins and outs of breath, and to be with it for as much as you could to see what changes, what evolves. And yogis may have had a little bit of difficulty getting to this place. And then there were the asanas, the creation of the series and the practice, so that we would work ourselves in a certain manner, so that when we got here, we could really be here and meet here. So we're going to give it another couple of minutes for this 45-minute class today to land in Shavasana corpse pose. And just bringing a little bit of awareness to your back body on the mat and the heavy state of that back body. You might go up and down the length of your body. You may start at your toes or at your head and work your way. And just notice if you can soften as you work your way. So can you soften the toes so that they fall heavy and open towards the sides of your room or mat or space? Can you feel the bones of your body melt a little more as though they're kind of drifting off into your mat? Can you aid your exhale breath into the space of relinquishing control? So you're just okay about letting go. It's surprising to know just how much we operate from a place of control. And we can kind of discover that in this practice as we let go. We kind of turn off holding ourselves in this position and instead relief into this position. We'll add on to this Shavasana. And I want you to bring your arms overhead and even have a little bit of a morning stretch as you reach through the fingers. Open the space of the shoulders. Feel the armpits way open to the sky. And then maybe draw the legs together and point the toes to add on to this morning stretch. Breathe in. And as you exhale, soften the reach so there's a bend in the arms and you wave open through the big toes, softening the legs and ankles. You can keep a micro bend of the feet, soles of the feet onto your mat. Your knees will look up. And then wide your knees like a book towards the sides of your mat, your room, your space. Soles of the feet are together like prayer hands. Badakanasana Leg Pose here. Supine Badakanasana. Butterfly pose. If you're having trouble letting your arms relax right onto the floor, then bend the arms more so that you give space. And then commit to this still shape. We meet yin poses for anywhere from 2 to 5 to 7 breaths. Or 2 to 5 to 7 minutes, I should say. For many, many breaths. For tighter hips, or inner thighs and groin area, you might feel like you're holding your legs and there's a bit of tension in this shape. So you're welcome to slip any kind of support or prop underneath your thighs. And for 2 props, you can even just put your fists underneath your outer thighs. If you're doing that version, that will remove the opening across the armpits and shoulders, but this may be where you need to be to support this. A little more than halfway through, holding the shape, not the breath. And just maybe noticing how the shape is opened up in your body, because that's what time gives you. Time and gravity, they meet up. And the shape, even if it's very subtle, will have changed a bit. Meaning it will have evolved a bit. So just noticing if you're open a little more through the inner thighs, the groin area, the hip creases. And if you've got this variation with the arms overhead, what's opened up there in the elbows and in the shoulders? You might even notice your center line, that space in between the breastbones, down your torso center line, down into the belly button center line, all the way down. Can you feel a little more space that's opened up there? I'm going to take a few more breaths. For the last 2 breaths, explore your inhale, rising your belly and heart a little more to fit a little more inhale in. Maybe taking an extra sip, holding at the top of your inhale so you can kind of feel your body become a little bit balloon-like. And then parting your jaw for a slow exhale. Maybe holding at the bottom of the exhale on empty. And then out of that hold, another rise of belly and heart. Big inhale. Can you gather a little more? Holding. And exhale out. Forearms overhead, bringing them forward, putting the hands to the outer thighs, outer knees, helping those guys close like a book. You're going to move through a little bit of ache in the space. Acknowledge that space. Slow movement. Knees face up, deep breath in. And then long your legs, heels to the mat. Shavasana legs again, palms open to the sky, a little breathing space at the armpits. And then notice what's changed from that first Shavasana corpse pose. We're going to roll over and get this guy out of the sun. My little monitor of sorts. You're going to roll over and make your way into a child's pose. So child's pose, knees together or knees apart but toes always touching. The knees together give you a little more space in your lower back. If you're having trouble melting your forehead or heart close to the mat in your child's pose, you can take your prop, whether it's a block or a rolled up towel, and sew up the space between your body and the mat. Some folks have a little bit of problem just because of tightness, and that isn't always the case. It changes or evolves with your butt, your sit bones meeting your heels. So you can also use your prop to sew up the space there. You'd rest it on your heels, and then your bum would go back towards the heels. And if you've got a prop there, it would go onto the prop. So you're sewing up any kind of space that doesn't allow for you to rest in your pose. Because you want to avoid holding yourself up in a pose and more sinking into it, relaxing in, especially for the yin practice. That's a component of yin that we really want to embrace. Long breaths in and out through the nose. Occasional exhale sighs through the mouth just to drop in a little bit more. Softening through the arms. So try and avoid reaching the arms and long. Right? Because when you go long through the arms, there's a stretch that's a little more active. Bend through the elbows to soften space in the shoulders and upper back body. And most of these poses in our 45-minute practice are going to be held in and around 3 minutes. Maybe we'll get into the juicy part of 5 minutes. So being more than halfway there in this Balasana child's pose, this relaxed state, you might check in with whether things have opened up a bit. Meaning, if you're using props to support you, maybe you notice that the space you're sewing up has softened, and you might be able to get rid of that prop and settle in a little more deeply. Here's the thing. If it stops you from relaxing in the space and actually getting the yin benefits of being in this pose, then you need to turn back. Meaning, if you're working at it rather than resting in it, prop it up. Take about 2 more breaths in this really surrendered state of balasana. Again, you might opt to inhale and fit in a little more inhale, get to the top, hold your breath for the count of 3 or 5, and then let go from that space. And if you've got another breath in the pose, on empty, exhale, hold on empty. See what that feels like. And then inhale from the hold of empty, get to the top again, one last hold. And then you can exhale and sigh relief, and notice if the body just melts in a little more deeply into your mat. From this child's pose, we're going to make the arms go long now. We're going to make those guys active. So I want you to kind of claw your fingertips forward till you pick up the elbows off the mat. You got wide hands, right? Wide fingers spread out, pads of the fingers pressing the floor away. As you press the floor or the mat away, press your sit bones closer to your heels. Keep those elbows off the mat. And then I'm going to get you to add on. Stay in Balasana Child's Pose. Pick up the heels of the hands off the mat. Go into the fingertips and push the floor away. Elbows still lifted, of course. Feel a little more space and stretch through the lats, the armpits. And then last little bit of add-on here, put the heels of the hands down. And then flip the hands over. So there's an external rotation. You could even touch your pinkies as your palms face up. Back of the hands are on the mat, and try and ground the back of the hands as much as possible and still lift the elbows. For 3, breathe it. 2. Good. Now flip the hands back. Wide the fingers. Webbing of the hands gets a stretch. Come up into a tabletop of sorts on your hands and knees. Knees are wide here. So curl the toes under and step the knees in. Probably about 1 small step for hip width distance. Curl your toes under. That should feel pretty decent. It opens up the plantar fascia of the feet if you press into the toes. Not an insignificant stretch. Think about how much space and time you give to these parts of your feet, right? And the fact that you stand on your feet, probably not on good shoes. In the summertime, tons of flip-flops and sandals. Oh boy. So you want to open up the plantar fascia and then let that take you into downward face dog. Inverted V. Hip creases pressing up and back. Sit bones pressing up and back. Backs of the knees pressing back. Heels reaching for the mat, but they do not have to touch. Yeah. Spin the elbows in. Hug the ribs in so that you're ducking your navel in and back. You might even look at your navel. That helps with it. You'll feel the tuck of the chin ignite the navel, and then release the tuck of the chin so neck is long with the spine, because of course it is the spine. Soften the jaw, press through the pads of the fingers, and keep this guy going. Adho Mukha Shavasana, downward face dog. Last little bit in down dog. It's not a yin pose per se, but we're making it so by holding a little more and really balancing the efforts through all of the body. So no one guy in the body takes all of the load. And then try and lift your toes. And spread all 10 toes wide so that you feel a little more through the hamstrings for 3, 2. You can come back down onto the knees. Tabletop. Take your block or rolled up towel prop and bring it to the front of the mat. And then put your forearms on it. So if you've got a block, you'll be in good shape. It's a little higher than my rolled up towel. Hands out in front, fingertips relaxed. Walk your knees back about half a step or a step. Curl your toes under again, heels point up. And then send your bum towards your feet. As you kind of come into what seems a little bit like child's pose, but we call this actually melted heart. And we'll drop our heart center as much as we can towards the mat. So again, you're not holding yourself up here. You're dropping your heart center like there's a 5-pound weight at the center of your chest, and it's just hanging heavy to embrace a kind of arch in the spine. If you need a little more stretch through the lats and the armpits, you'll step your knees back a little more so that the knees are directly underneath the hip creases or sit bones. You might even kiss the floor with your lips without smushing your nose too much. That encourages less pushing the floor away and more melting in. Hence, melted heart pose, Anahastasana. A little bit of guidance with this guy. It is totally natural that your shoulders, your lats, your armpits are going to be kind of screaming at you as they open space. If you can soften in your jaw and receive this, see if you can stay with it. If you're fighting it too much, maybe back off a bit. You can step your knees in about a little bit. And invite a little less that way. Remember to soften in the hands. Notice if you're fisting. Get the grit out of it. You'll probably be able to hear my breath. It is a guide into ease for me. Keep showing up to meet an inhale and then meet an exhale. Last 2 breaths. See if you might meet these 2 breaths in the same way we've been doing. Holding at the top of the inhale. Finding a big, audible exhale out the mouth. Maybe holding at the bottom of that exhale on empty. Can kind of trigger a little bit of stuff that's worth looking at. You don't need to make any decisions about what transpires. You just notice. Hence, don't judge it. If your toes are not curled under, curl them under so that you can walk your knees in a little bit in this shape to give a little more space to come out of Anahastasana. Then lift your head, move your hips forward so that you're creating a bend in the arms with forearms on your prop, and then one hand at a time steps up onto your prop and then off of your prop. And then you can sit back, bum to heels in a hero's pose and let that stuff kind of relax in the shoulders, upper back. And then we're going to turn around and lie down on our back body and just hear what our body has to say after a bit of that business. Shavasana. It's totally natural to feel a kind of ache. I also noticed through a bit of space. And you created more space. In my body. It's just like something was a little locked and I didn't even notice. And then you bust through and the door's that much wider. Take another couple of breaths on your back body for Shavasana. And then make your way into a sit in a kind of lotus pose. Sukhasana. You can also, if you have problems getting to this pose, prop your block or your rolled up towel underneath your seat, across horizontally your sit bones, so that what happens is it tilts your sit bones up, but then it tilts your knees and your pelvic floor down, and it usually gives you a little more space to be here. It also helps remind you to do something with your spine. Sit up straight. So if you are, well, most of us are, we're either at computers or at some weird job that has us sitting for long periods of time, this is an option. If you get yourself a prop or a block or a meditation pillow, why not? Even at work. You're going to take your strap or your tie or whatever you're using for your strap. You're going to get your arms kind of wide. You'll know how wide they need to be as you come into this. And we're going to take our arms overhead on an inhale. Holding the strap, we're going to go behind us on an exhale. Remove that glass of water. Holding the strap with a slight pull, we're going to come up overhead, breathe in. Space. We're going to come forward and down, exhale. And you're just going to repeat with your breath. Inhales are up. Exhales behind. Inhales are up overhead. Exhale now in front. You can even close your eyes and just get into a nice sweet rhythm. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. few more, guys. One more. Inhale on top. Exhale. Let go of the strap. Maybe make little circles with your hands. If you go one way, you gotta go the other. Space in the fingers. And then we'll take the strap one more time out in front. And we're just gonna have a side body stretch. So arms overhead holding the strap. Breathe in. And go to the left. Breathe out. So the left hand pulls the right hand over. You should feel a side body stretch. Try and look up to the sky. Keep your gaze open for 3. Ground your right sit bone. He wants to take off for 2. Ooh. Good. Come back up to center. Breathe in. Go up and over to the right. Pull your right hand down to pull onto your left hand and arm. Left side body open. Look up. If you've got the sun in your eyes, close your eyes. Ground through your left sit bone. Breathe in. Force space into the left side with your breath for 2. For 1. Come back up. Inhale. And let it go out in front. Exhale. Come off your prop if you're sitting on one. Prop. Lie back down on your mat. Feel our last little bit here. You might notice in this Shavasana where we started the practice, how are your arms? Are they a bit longer? Have they grown? 2 more breaths in this Shavasana. I'm going to sit back up. Use your belly squeezing in to get that sit up. Take your prop. If you're using a rolled up towel, you might want to prop it and fold it kind of double. If you've got a block, it should be okay. You're going to go vertically with the spine line. So if you were using a prop that is a block, it would look a little bit like that. And vertically at the spine line, you're going to lie down. So the prop, if it's a long block proper, it could go up the length of the spine into the neck body even, and at the base of the head. Or you could not support the base of the head and have the head hang down to really create a nice open heart fish pose. Supported fish pose, that is. And right away, similarly to what we did before, that kind of busting through, we're busting our chest, center line a little more wide. Take advantage of this center line, breathe in and out through this center line as though you want to bust in a little more space. It's the breath that does that work, really. And just see where it gets you. If you don't love the neck opening and if your head doesn't ground to the floor, then you are going to need to slide your prop up into the neck space and base of the head to support, and it would look something like this with a prop. And you'd still get the benefits of busting open center line of your chest and heart. The benefits of this pose are in fact, all yin poses benefit from that. Time and gravity, they hook up and they tell you what's what in your body and what's really possible. And usually it isn't anything that we thought was possible. We thought we were built one way, and then we find out we've got a little more space to dig into. Decide, I'm going to hang on to this till the end of the song, or maybe the song even after that. If you're not working with a playlist and you're with me and you're just with the sweet sounds that surround you, you can stay here for as long as you can, like, want to. Maybe all those three things meet up. The most important thing about coming out of this pose is acknowledging and committing to a final Shavasana. So from this pose, you need to promise yourself and me that you're going to meet your back body onto the mat in corpse. And you'll decide when that will be. I promise you, open heart, supported fish pose, there really isn't an expiry to that. So if you felt like you wanted to be there longer, you could. And then similarly, there's no expiry to corpse pose. Shavasana all day, all the time. I'll leave you to it. Classes will be a little more spaced out in the offering of them. Typically I'm here Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, and you're free to check in for live classes at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. And if you don't find me, there are plenty of classes on the channel. Got a few things going on this summer, so we'll offer classes when we can, live, and there'll always be classes on the channel for you to keep up with your practice. Check in on Wednesday. I should be able to offer a practice then. Maybe not live. And enjoy your day. Lots of love, guys. Namaste.